I've been collecting non-sports cards of various values for a while now, but I have yet to hear a compelling argument that even begins to explain the grading nonsense I keep seeing. So let's jump right into everything I think is wrong with the current state of card grading. First, the UV protection offered by graded slabs is quite frankly embarrassing compared to what one gets from simple $3 magnetic holders. And that's a serious problem on the secondary market. The cards might get sun damaged after they are graded. That would make the grade null and void, and the damage might be hard to spot for unsuspecting buyers. There are UV protection accessories for graded slabs like Slab Max, but these are expensive and I haven't seen any proper independent lab audits proving how effective they really are. And honestly, if you look at people's graded card displays, you often see slabs sitting out in rooms with natural light with no extra UV protection at all. My second complaint is how inconvenient and risky it is to remove cards from slabs. It should be easy to safely take a card out without damaging it, using minimal tools, like just a Swiss Army knife. But right now, heavy-duty tools and eye protection are needed. On top of that, there are all sorts of cracking techniques that the community can't even seem to agree on. The very foundation of grading should be protecting the card from damage while it's being put into the slab, while it is in the slab, and also, very importantly, while it is being removed. I refuse to believe that with all the collective intellect in this industry, the current method is anywhere near the best solution. One thing I think Beckett gets right that others don't is the inner sleeve. With PSA slabs, there's just a tiny bit of room for the card to move around inside. I'm of the opinion that movement can actually damage the edges of the card. I'm also not sure if it can scratch the surface. The problem is that graded card buyers usually have no idea how the slab was stored. Unfortunately, with the insufficient protection slabs offer, the condition of the card inside might have changed. The next problem is one that sketch card collectors have run into with magnetic holders. Sometimes the front of painted sketch cards sticks to the inside of the holder. When collectors peel the card away, some paint inevitably chips off, and I've seen that happen multiple times. This is exactly where the inner sleeve would help. That's why I keep all my sketch cards in pro-mold holders which allow for an inner sleeve. When cracking cards out of slabs, the inner sleeve can help protect the card's surface from falling plastic shards that could cause damage. I have a problem with the form factor of graded slabs. I like to display my cards and I can only fit about half as many graded slabs on my shelves compared to cards in magnetic holders. The top and edges of magnetic holders provide enough space for all the necessary label information. Even if we can't get down to the size of magnetic holders, I'm sure we could get a lot closer. I don't know how to take graders seriously when they pass cleaned and altered cards. I find the claim that it's undetectable hard to accept, especially since people in science fields have already debunked that. To me, it feels like a cost-cutting measure, whether intended or not, and I think it's something that will hurt the hobby. The older, more established coin and gemstone industries take cleaning or alterations very seriously. For example, cleaning numismatic coins often dramatically lowers their value, and graders work hard to detect cleaning. With gemstones, heating, glass filling, and other alterations all affect the value. If that wasn't enough, PSA once sent out a survey about offering a buffing and surface scratch removal service. I'm baffled by how much trust people put into non-witnessed aftermarket autograph authentication. For example, some people paid about $2,000 for a recently signed PSA DNA rookie look card and have no doubt the actor signed it. With sports cards, it gets even crazier. I've also seen big influencers hyping certain aftermarket autographs like there's no tomorrow. From what I've seen, graders don't appear to take responsibility for the accuracy of aftermarket autograph authentication. Let's look at the economics of it. If someone could accurately fake a possible celebrity autograph that's in high demand, they could make over $1,000 per signature. Sure, they wouldn't want to flood the market with too many of them. But really, it doesn't seem that complicated for the kind of money they could make. People bring up the so-called PSA Guarantee from time to time, and it just goes on to show how clueless the community is, as very few people went through the trouble of reading the terms and conditions. I don't see how a slab holder could ever enforce the guarantee without PSA wishing to honor something they don't need to. If they're not even willing to put their money where their mouth is by covering PSA DNA in the presence autographs under their own PSA authenticity and grade guarantee, then what's the point really? I've seen graders assign labels to things they clearly have little clue about, and it just keeps happening. Take sketch cards, for example. Sometimes it's genuinely hard to identify which set a sketch comes from, but that hasn't stopped some graders from carelessly slapping on a label and just hoping for the best. With Rogue One, Series 1 and 2 sets, the card stock is exactly the same. There are some clues that can help, like which artists worked on which set or what reference images were used. But PSA labeled this sketch as Series 1 with the year 2017, which obviously doesn't add up, since Series 1 was released in 2016 and Series 2 in 2017. With Game of Thrones, it's notoriously tough to tell which set a sketch came from. And it matters, especially when distinguishing between the season-specific sets and the ones without a season in the name. Overall, I've seen mislabeling get much worse than these examples. If graders can't be certain about the set, they shouldn't be labeling the card like they are. Occasionally, influencers try to convince collectors that subgrades or grader notes aren't necessary or that they shouldn't be made public. That alone tells one whose interests they are really serving. It seems to me that some of them rarely missed an opportunity to take a dig at Beckett, but the rumors of Beckett's demise have turned out to be greatly exaggerated time and time again. With their subgrades, Beckett still stands out as the lone guardian of transparency in that regard. And let's not forget when PSA added clauses that in my view effectively silenced many collectors from sharing grading notes. Later, they seemed to brush it off as if nothing had happened, at least that's how I saw it. And it just so happens that the North remembers. There are autograph cards for which the normal authentication process isn't sufficient. For example, Beckett started requiring additional JSA autograph authentication for certain cards as an extra layer of security. But I believe graders are still pretty bad at spotting these high-risk cards or sets. Take the 2018 top Star Wars archives, for example. Cheap cards from older sets that are easy to find on the secondary market were taken, stamped with the Topps Archives logo and a number, and later signed. I think it would be naive to believe that replicating those two stamps is impossibly expensive. This raises the question of whether these cards can be authenticated at all from a scientific point of view. If graders absolutely must authenticate these cards, I think requiring that extra autograph authentication option as an additional security measure would be the way to go. Right now, it's optional and up to the submitter to decide if they want that extra step. As far as I know, grading companies have no official policy regarding cigarette smell. I consider this a huge mistake because cigarette smell often greatly devalues collectibles. I think the slab can mask the smell, making it hard to tell upon obtaining a new slabbed card if it came from a smoking environment. The lack of solid, published, peer-reviewed research on card grading is seriously concerning. Grading inconsistencies in cards get brought up on social media all the time. If you don't believe me, just listen to the people who collect or power trade top 77 Star Wars. I sometimes sit back and watch, and with every pricier card, it seems to be a whole ordeal. There's this ongoing debate about old labels versus new ones, and people analyze photos trying to figure out if the grade is even remotely accurate. When it comes to grading autographs, one would hope that checking whether the autograph runs off the card and is therefore automatically disqualified from a 10 grade would be simple enough. But apparently even issues that basic often slip through the cracks. And the problem isn't limited to Beckett. It's just easier to search for 10 autograph grades with them, since the card grade itself rarely comes in as pristine 10. There are a couple of things that aren't exactly issues with grading itself, but they are worth reconsidering as a collector. First is the grading of costume and prop cards. I honestly can't remember the last time I saw someone pull one of these and not run their finger across the relic piece. Well, aside from breakers obviously. There are details one just might not pick up on by only looking at the card. Then there's the second issue. Graders often have no way of knowing if the relic has been altered. Like if someone added extra weathering to a costume piece to make it more desirable. So at this point, what's the point of grading relics at all? One often hears people argue they grade cards so their family will have everything labeled and easier to list after they pass. But one can literally take a piece of paper, write down the same information about the card variant and set that a label would include, and store one's own freshly made label in a top-loader team bag or magnetic holder sleeve. The paper might fade over time, so it's probably a good idea to keep a digital copy too. At this point, I feel like no matter what problems with grading get brought up, there's a good chance they will fall on deaf ears. Too many people have so much money tied up in labels that they wouldn't be able to stomach the idea that things aren't as rosy as they're painted.